Kia ora tātou, nau mai piki mai ki tō tātou nei whare. Welcome to Te Puna Waikato, Trust Waikato, and welcome to our Facebook live Q&A session. I'm going to get our grants team to introduce themselves, so I'm going to start on my left.
Hi, I'm Nita, I'm the database manager. I'm going to talk about registration soon.
Talofa lava, I'm Tarita Templeton. I'm a member of the grants team and I work in our community, specifically with our Pacifica and ethnic community groups, as well as social services sector and also the volunteering and economic and community development.
Kia ora tātou, Rongo Kirkwood, and I work in the Māori sector, and I also look after applications that come in for Significant Capital Project Fund and impact grants.
Kia ora, I'm Molly Allen. I am a grants advisor as well, and I work alongside sports, education, health, environment, and youth organisations.
So the topics that we're going to be covering in the session, we're going to be looking at accessing our grantee portal. We're also going to be looking at what we fund, accountability, and how you can access the grants team. So, kia ora, Nita.
Thank you, back to me. Hello again. I do look after the database, and that includes things like registering, helping you through an application, retiring people, or showing you how to add new people. So in the charity sector, we have quite a turnover of staff, and so at this time of the year, we have lots of people registering. Each person needs to register themselves. Your log on and sign in belong to you personally, not to the group. So once you do manage to log in, you might find that there's people in there who are no longer with your group. You can retire them by just sending us an email to grantsinquiry@trustwaikato.co.nz and I'll remove them for you. New people can add themselves by taking the eligibility quiz on the grantee portal. Instead of filling in the login details on the left, just go to the right hand side and you'll see the eligibility quiz there. Once you work through that, it'll come to me and I'll approve your registration. There are videos on our website to help you with how to register, how to complete an application, and how to navigate your way around the grantee portal. So they're also available on the grantee portal. So if you need to, give me a ring if you can't work your way through those. Thanks.
Cool. So what does Trust Waikato fund? So just real quickly, while we're going through a few things that we've got pre-planned, there is a comment section right beside the video, and if you have any questions, just feel free to drop those in there and we'll get to those at some stage throughout the video. So what Trust Waikato funds? So Trust Waikato funds operational costs, your project costs, and events. So just bear in mind that Trust Waikato is a partial funder, so inside Trust Waikato's grants policy, we can fund up to 20% of your total project costs. This can be less, so just bear that in mind when you are making applications with us, that a funding plan is a good idea. As well, we do have strategic priorities which can be found on our website, www.trustwaikato.co.nz. And I have one more thing to say. Some examples of projects that we've previously funded as well can be found on our website, same website as I just quoted before. But if you do have any questions, feel free to call any of us, which we can quickly say, comment our details below, and just ask any questions. We're pretty open. It's good. Yeah.
So just to reiterate that how you can make contact with us is you can contact us through our 0800 number, 0800 436 628. Also through email, which our details are on our website, and we are also able to arrange a Zoom meeting with you, the grant advisors. In the past, because of level 2, we are unable to personally come and visit you, but we do encourage you to make contact with us, and we'll try and schedule in a Zoom meeting so we can hear about the project, whether it fits our criteria, and recommend where else you can go to apply for funding. Tarita.
Cool. So we thought we would delve into looking at or having a chat about accountability reports. So for those of you that may have received a grant in round 3 last year, your reports are now due. So we're just going to talk about where you find the reports and the type of information that we require. So first off, with your log on, if you log into the grantee portal, and you'll see a menu there which says reports and then reports due. Now, if you open up your report, you'll see that there's some pre-filled information there. Now, we've tried to make the reports nice and easy, so there is some information that's actually transferred through from your application last year. And what it'll give you is just a small description around your project, what you applied for, but it also talks about the outcomes that you were hoping to achieve. So when it comes to completing the accountability, what we're looking for is really for you just to tell us the story of how the last year has been, and just to account for the funding that you've received. Now, if your grant is under 50,000, then we don't require any attachments at all. So you don't need to worry about gathering in financial statements or receipts and things. When you're happy with the report, then just hit submit, and that will send it in to us.
So probably a key point that we'd like to raise with you today is we have our last funding round, and it closes next Friday, 11th of September, and you need to have your application submitted online at 4:30. So we're encouraging you right now, if you're not registered, make contact with Nita. If you have any inquiries about your project, contact either of the grants advisors that are here today, and also visit our website, as well as making contact with us is really, really key.
Cool. So while we're waiting for some questions to come through, what I thought we could do is just go around each of us can just quickly say what makes a good application. So just one thing that you think would make a good application.
I think what will make a good application is if you plan really early. So in saying that we've got a closing date next Friday, your project and all your planning should have been completed a month earlier, and you should have been registered with us already.
Oh gosh, I can only choose one. Okay, I think, usually there's one person in an organisation that gets the task of writing the application, and they tend to be, knowledgeable about the project and really enthusiastic, and will complete the form. At that stage, my bit of advice would be to get another pair of eyes to have a look at it. Sometimes, if the project in particular is close to your heart, and you're describing it in things, and there may be even some acronyms or language, that's specific to your organisation, but you've got to think about there are other eyes who may not know about your organisation or about your project that are going to be reading it. So my advice would be to get another pair of eyes just to read the application over and make sure that it makes sense to them. If it does, then it's highly likely to make sense to us as well.
And my hint is not to stress too much. We've tried to make the application process as easy as we can. We really do encourage you to start it early so that if you get stuck, we can help you. And unfortunately, most people do leave it till those last couple of days, so we do get busy on the phones here. But if you are not stressed and you're doing it and you've got all your paperwork there, then I think normally it would only take about 20 minutes to complete. So I do sometimes encourage people to take deep breaths and try not to overthink it too much, because if you left it to that last bit, you're putting yourself under pressure, and it can seem a lot harder than it actually is. So prepare, start a bit earlier, and don't overthink it.
Cool. And mine would be just simply to attach the compulsory documents. So don't actually attach the documents that we're asking for. Don't try and get around it by attaching something that doesn't relate to what we're asking for, because we will need to ask for that particular document. Cool. So we've got a couple of questions coming through. We've got one from Alfred around location. So what areas does Trust Waikato fund?
So our funding is specific to the Waikato region. So once again, I highly encourage you to visit our website and you will see our regional boundary map on who we can fund and the areas that we fund. So I hope that's answered your question.
Cool. Stephen has put, will the 20% funding limit apply to the new impact funding coming in October, i.e. funding new infrastructure projects, etc.?
So we thank you for your question, Stephen. We have a closing date that closes next week in September. We don't have any closing dates happening in October. But if you're looking at big capital projects, I did mention the significant capital project fund that we have. That closes each year in June, and it is for $1 million plus projects. But we encourage you to meet with us first before submitting an application, because we really need to discuss what your intentions are, if you've had raised funds already, what your funding plan is, the community is going to benefit. There's quite a lot of things that we need to cover.
Does this apply for organisations or also freelancers?
Okay, I'll take that one. Thanks for that question. So in terms of Trust Waikato funding, we look to fund charitable trusts or those involved in a charitable activity and who are a group. So unfortunately we can't fund individuals through our funding.
Cool. So with our compulsory documents, the last audited financial accounts, i.e. 2018 to 2019, or profit and loss for the financial year 2019 or to 2020, which one would be better?
So for financial statements, we are always keen to get the most recent up-to-date information that we can. So in terms of your annual financial statements, if you could attach for us your most recent year end. So I'm just needing to find your question. Okay, so we would like to see those year ending accounts as at 2019. They are, you know, depending on whether it was as at March or June or September, they're still you know, they don't appear that they would be more than 12 months old. I would just attach those. If your statements are starting to get 18 months or 2 years old, then it's definitely useful to give us a profit and loss statement for a more recent period as well.
Can I just take a moment to remind you what there are 4 compulsory attachments in the community response round, and that is your financial statements that we've been talking about. It's a bank deposit slip, and this needs to be a verified bank deposit slip. A lot of us don't have deposit slips now. We can't take a printout off the internet because that can be changed. So you would need to get that stamped by the bank is how we usually get confirmation now of your deposit slip, and that's compulsory on every application. We also need your chairs report, and we get a few questions about chairs reports. We're really looking for a summary of what your activities have been for the year. So if you don't have a chairs report, you might have minutes from your AGM or something along those lines. If you're not sure about your chairs report, that's a really good thing to call and check with your grants advisor. And I just need reminding where I'm up to. I've got a bank deposit slip, the financial statements. Oh, we need some recent bank statements. So four things: the bank deposit, the financial statements, some recent bank statement, and your chairs report.
That's it. Yeah. Just before we go to the next question, from time to time people do work through the application. They've answered off everything, but perhaps they might be piloting a new program or looking at a new service. And if you feel that you haven't had an opportunity to cover off all the key parts of that and would like to give us further information, then there is an option to upload additional information. We would just say to please keep that brief, you know, keep it to maybe 1 or 2 pages extra. That will strengthen your application.
Cool. So just on that as well, a chairman's report inside your annual report is okay. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. So one from Jack, what are your thoughts on the effect of COVID-19 for funding amounts and priorities, both within Trust Waikato and the wider funding sector over the next 12 months? Whew, big question.
Big question. Very big question, actually. So once again, I'll refer back to our website. We have a strategic plan, a 10-year strategic plan, and we have our key strategic priority areas. So that's probably going to have a huge impact on how we're looking at applications that are going to be coming in. But we're probably focusing on communities that have the most vulnerable or needs or high needs moving forward. That's just what I can see happening.
Natalie, could you just put the question up, please?
Now, but we can also reassure people that we do have a conservative strategy that protects our grant budget over the coming years. So although investments have been hit through COVID, we have a strong policy where there is enough put aside that we will certainly be able to grant at very similar levels next year.
Yeah. I read that the Trust is definitely a long-term investor.
Yeah.
Now, we've got another question I just saw come in there regarding
Charities.
Yep, we've covered that one. Can we go down a bit lower, please, Natalie?
Yeah, so the chairman's report and the annual
Yeah, we did that
report,
one.
that's okay.
Yep, that's all good.
So there was one around
Something about
12 months. Can charities that are 12 months old or younger who don't have annual financial accounts still apply to Trust Waikato?
Okay, I know there were two parts there, but we'll find the question shortly. But yes, if you've been operating for less than 12 months, then yes, you can apply to us. The sorts of things that we're, I guess, interested in knowing if you've had a shorter history in terms of operating is just making sure that you do have a structure in place. So do you have a bank account set up? Are you able to provide a budget? That could be a forecast for what you're looking at for your services over the next 12 months. We look to see if there's some kind of structure around maybe your meeting monthly. And then it's around just looking at what it is that you're providing. Is anyone else out there providing a similar service? Who do you work in with? And just those sorts of things. So if you're a group that sort of falls into that area, you've been operating for less than 12 months, our best advice would be to just give us a call, and then we can look more specifically at where you're at and how we can help you moving forward. And if it's something that we can't help with, then one of the things we try and do is then connect you with other organisations such as the Umbrella Trust that were all mentioned, or with other funders.
Actually, Teresa just raised a good point. So we support umbrella organisations, Sport Waikato, Creative Waikato, and Community Waikato. So if you're a new entity or thinking of starting a new entity, they will be able to help you with building your capacity. So we're going back to any other questions?
So we'll just hang around for a couple minutes. If you've got any further questions, feel free to put them in the comments section. We're watching that, so we'll be able to see it come through straight away.
There was just one thing I thought of, Molly, because I think we've got about 10 more minutes, so if there are any burning questions, now's the time to ask. But just over the last week we've been getting a few calls, and one question that I often get, which and it may be that someone out there is also wondering about this, and this is around whether you can apply for more than one project. So the answer to that is yes, definitely. We have a number of groups who come to us, and they might be applying regularly for operating costs, for anything to do with their typical expenses over a year, and perhaps wages as well. And then sometimes they may have another program that they want to look for some funding support for or an event or something happening. So if you're in that situation when you're doing your application form, all you need to do is just mention each project. So you might start with your operating, then move into number 2, could be an event that you're having, and maybe there's a number 3.
So also a question that we get often asked as well, I've received a grant already from Trust Waikato in 2020. Am I able to apply for another grant? And the simple question or answer to that, sorry, is no, you can't. So it's 1 grant per calendar year if you're successful. If you've been declined at all, we really, really encourage you to make contact with us.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll talk you through the reasons why.
Yeah, and our calendar year, we begin on the 1st of January each year as a new funding year.
Cool. We've just got 2 questions pop up around salaries and wages. So are salaries a high priority for Trust Waikato? And then what does the landscape look like for wages for someone seeking funds to pay staff? So sort of the similar questions.
Okay, well, I'll start on that one and then just chime in to add to it. But I guess the way we would look at that would be the salaried role and what the person was doing in terms of supporting the service or the organisation that's coming to us, and the role in the community. So, for example, high priority for us would be social services, projects that are around well-being to vulnerable communities, vulnerable families. And so if there's a wage that's helping to support that service, then yes, it would be higher priority for us, but it can differ. Molly, do you want to touch, because you cover off sports and health and other sectors?
Yeah. So like Teresa said, it would be based on the role that the person's doing. So Trust Waikato does look at salaries. If it's the first time applying to us, we do ask that you attach a job description, so not their contract, just the description of what they would actually be doing, so that we can see that. It does sit in amongst operational costs for organisations, and Trust Waikato does contribute towards operational costs. Just when you're applying to us, if it does include wages, just make sure you include that in your project title as well. So it'd be operational costs and wages or salaries. Cool. Ronald, would you like to add anything on that? No? So we've just had a question pop up. So under our charity, we are working on projects with other profit organisations, limited liabilities, business partners, and they're working on holistic projects. Does that matter? Can we still apply even while we ourselves are a charity?
Yeah, so there's a few things in the mix there, and I would say you're probably better to give us a call. We just need a little bit more information around that. The only thing I could probably say is that we do have some organisations who come to us for a part of the work that they're doing. They'll apply for a project that might align with Trust Waikato, but not for other things. So we just want to know a little bit more around how you're set up, what your deed is like, and what the charitable side of your service is opposed to, the for-profit side.
Cool. So we've got a question there around improving the local hall. Total cost would be about $40,000, and could the Trust Waikato application be for 20% of that amount? I thought I could just jump in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Since I haven't answered one. So the local hall, so there's 2 boxes inside the Trust Waikato application. You've got one where we ask what your total project cost would be, and that's where you would put the $40,000 or the total project cost in there. It could be any figure that you've got there. And then you've got a box there that talks about your Trust Waikato request. And so that's where you would put the 20%, or if it's $40,000, $8,000 there, you can put that number in there. And then it would go through our processes inside the trust and would work it all out in the background.
So, and to add to Molly's kōrero is that you have to have a really good funding plan in place. What is the funding plan? What does it look like? So funding plan is that you've raise some of the money towards your project. You'll also apply to other funders towards the project, and the outcome for you would be that through several funding sources, your project will be achieved. So it's very, very important that when you're making applications not only to Trust Waikato, but to other funders, that you have a sound funding plan in place.
One thing as well, or Scouts, we don't require 2 quotes. We just want the quote that you will be using for your project. Cool. And then, is there a maximum amount we can apply for?
Well, once again, if you've got a sound funding plan in place, you have to be realistic. So we already know an overinflated budget. All of us know what an overinflated budget looks like. So be real, have that funding plan in place. That's key to ensuring that your project is going to be achieved.
I think one of the benefits of the funding plan is that it will help guide you to quickly identify what your funding shortfall is. When you're applying to Trust Waikato, bear in mind that, as Molly said, under our policy, we do have a maximum around 20% of a project cost. So that's there to help guide you. Or you can call us, and we can also look at your project in more detail and help provide some guidance there as well.
Cool. So we've just had somebody, Dawn, write to us about a legal name change. They're going to put it in their accountability. If you could also flick us through an email to grantsinquiry@trustwaikato.co.nz, then we'll be able to change that and update that in our system for you.
Yeah, actually, it's a good one for Nita. Is there anything further you want to?
Yeah, when we are registering new groups, I do check to see that it is a legal group. It might not be registered with charities, but you will have registered, for Dawn's question, you will have registered your name change with Charity Services, and we can access that and see when it's been legally processed by them. So I just need the prompt for me to go and look at the charities site for you, and I'll update your name from that prompt. We also have groups that are incorporated or societies, or even a few limited companies. So when you do register a new group and we've not had it with us before, we go through and we check and see whether you might fit our criteria and that you are a legally formed group. Now, if you're not a legally formed group, then we'll probably get one of the grants advisors to give you a ring and talk through what your structure is, so that we can make sure that we're not registering people who are individuals. We don't want to waste your time registering with us when you might be going to make an application that we know we have to decline because of our policy. So part of that registration process is trying to find people that will qualify under our policy.
Cool. Robin has asked if there's a formula to the amount of funding to cover wages or salaries that you can apply for with Trust Waikato. Can you apply for the whole amount, or do you need to look at splitting by applying to other funders? So wages and salaries would be treated as the project, so it would be the same scenario as other projects, where it would be about 20% or less of your total project cost. So you would need to look at other funders as well to cover the full salary or wage. Anyone want to add to that?
I think you covered it. I can just see a question about that from Al around asking if there's a template for a funding plan. So we don't have a template. We do that because we will accept whatever format that you send in, as long as it adds up. So you might use a template that you've had to prepare for another funder. You can get support with that from Community Waikato around anything to help strengthen your application for a funding plan, or around the financial reporting side of things.
Can I just jump in there a little bit? One of the focuses that we have in our application is trying to make it so that you don't have to write something specifically for us. That's why we want it to be your chair's report or your AGM minutes. We don't want you to be investing your time having to write something specifically for our documents, and that's why we want to use your regular financial reports and that sort of stuff. So try not to do too much work just for us. We want to use your existing documents.
Cool.
So just some key points before we close our session. So we have our closing date next Friday. You have to have your application into us submitted online for 4:30.
I think Nita mentioned about, like, if you haven't started your application, if you haven't registered with us, try and get onto that today or within the next, even over the weekend, because there is a 2-part process with registering.
And we do get very busy in the last few days, so it does take me a while to get through that registration list, and we don't want you to miss out on being able to apply.
Cool, just one quick question. Is 20% roughly applicable to all funders for a split? So that would be best to look across and contact all different funders that you would be approaching. Each funder is different. So always important to just pick up that phone and talk to the organisation that you're looking to apply for funds for. We do have grants advisors available every day, Monday to Friday, 8:30 till 5. So just pick up the phone at any stage and give us a call. We have got to our 101. We do have one last question. So just to clarify, if we have received a grant this month, the calendar year ends December, or do you mean 12 monthly?
So yes, the calendar ends at December. 1st of January, we begin a new year. And so you can choose whether you want to come in round 1, which is in February, round 2 in June, or round 3 in September.
Awesome. Just can I add to that? We always have a round open. Sometimes people wonder when they can apply. As soon as round 3 closes, round 1 for next year will open, and you can make your application. But it won't be considered until February next year. But it's always open. It's always the same form that you're using to apply on.
Cool. That's you to work.
So just in closing, from the Grants Advisors team and from Te Puno Waikato, we'd like to wish everybody well over the next few months. And we look forward to having a conversation with you about the wonderful work that you're implementing throughout our region. So, nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Bye!